Your grass is brown, your ponds are low, fire danger is elevated, and you're watching areas to your north get buried in snow while you haven't seen meaningful precipitation in months. Texas, I'm talking to you. Oklahoma, you too. Parts of Kansas, Arkansas, Western Tennessee, you're in drought. Not mild drought, moderate to severe drought. And it's affecting everything. Agriculture, water supplies, fire risk, even your mental health, watching the land dry up. But what if I told you relief is coming? Not this week. Not next week. But mid to late January shows a pattern shift that could bring you the moisture you've been desperate for. At the 11-minute mark, I'm explaining exactly what atmospheric setup brings moisture to drought-stricken areas. At the 19-minute mark, I'm breaking down what kind of precipitation you're likely to see and how much could fall. If you could comment your city and state, especially if you're dealing with drought, it helps me understand who needs this hope and who's watching these forecasts for rain, not snow. December 31st, 2025. And I want to talk about drought, about hope, and about why the second half of January could finally bring relief to areas that have been dry for too long. Let me start by acknowledging the reality of what you're dealing with right now. Drought isn't just about inconvenience. Drought kills. It kills crops. It kills livestock. It kills trees and vegetation. It increases wildfire risk dramatically. It strains water supplies. It creates economic hardship for farmers and ranchers. It's a slow-motion disaster that doesn't get the attention hurricanes or tornadoes get, but it affects more people and creates longer-lasting damage. Texas, particularly West Texas and the Panhandle, you've been dry since summer. Months without significant rain. Your soil is parched. Your ponds and stock tanks are low. Your pastures are brown. Fire danger has been elevated for weeks because everything is so dry it would burn readily. Someone commented, "Poor Texas, we need winter and rain. Bugs won't die at 85 degrees. You're right. Without sustained freezing temperatures and moisture, pest populations don't get knocked back. Disease pressure increases. The ecological balance gets disrupted." Another person said their grass is turning to straw. That's not exaggeration. That's reality. When vegetation is that dry, fire risk becomes extreme. One spark, one cigarette butt thrown from a car, one equipment malfunction, and you have a rapidly spreading wildfire. Oklahoma. You're in similar conditions, particularly western and central Oklahoma. The drought maps show you in moderate to severe drought. Your lakes are below normal. Your topsoil moisture is depleted. Winter wheat is stressed. Kansas, parts of you are dealing with exceptional drought. That's the worst category. Exceptional drought means crop and pasture losses are widespread. Water shortages are common. Fire risk is extreme. Arkansas, you're not in as severe drought as areas west of you, but you've still been drier than normal. Northern Arkansas particularly needs moisture. Western Tennessee, you're on the eastern edge of the dry conditions, but you've still been below normal on precipitation. All of you are watching winter weather forecasts, hoping to see something that shows moisture coming your way. And all winter, the pattern has kept you dry while dumping snow and rain on areas that don't need more. It's frustrating. It's disheartening. When you're dealing with drought and you watch atmospheric rivers hit California with flooding rain, or you watch the Great Lakes get buried in lake-effect snow, it feels unfair. Why can't some of that moisture come to where it's actually needed? The answer is atmospheric patterns. Weather doesn't care about fairness. Weather goes where the pattern directs it, and the pattern through early January keeps moisture away from you. But patterns change. And the pattern shift developing for mid to late January could finally bring you what you need. Let me explain what has to happen atmospherically to bring moisture to drought areas. First, you need the jet stream to dip far enough south to bring cold air into your region. The jet stream is like a river of air in the upper atmosphere. It separates cold air to the north from warm air to the south. When the jet stream dips south, it brings cold air with it. Why does cold air matter? Because cold air creates lift. When cold air pushes under warm air, the warm air is forced to rise. Rising air cools. Cooling air can't hold as much moisture. The moisture condenses and falls as precipitation. Second, you need moisture available. The Gulf of Mexico is your moisture source. When the southern jet stream, the subtropical jet, activates, it taps into Gulf moisture and brings it northward. Third, you need these two things to interact. Cold air from the north needs to meet moist air from the south. Where they collide, you get precipitation. For the past few months, you've had neither. The jet stream has been too far north to bring cold air into Texas, Oklahoma, and surrounding areas. The subtropical jet hasn't been active enough to bring Gulf moisture north. Without cold air and without moisture, you stay dry. But the pattern shift developing for mid-January brings both. The jet stream dips deeply into the south-central United States. Cold air crashes south. At the same time, the subtropical jet activates, bringing Gulf moisture north. When they meet over Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, you get precipitation. Now, I promised at the 11-minute mark I'd explain this atmospheric setup. We're past that, so let me give more detail. The East Pacific Oscillation, or EPO, measures jet stream behavior over the Eastern Pacific. When the EPO goes negative, the jet stream amplifies. Big dips and big ridges. Deep troughs that bring cold air far south. The data shows the EPO going strongly negative after January 7th. This supports the jet stream dipping all the way into Texas. Not just Oklahoma, not just Arkansas, Texas. That's how far south the cold air could reach. At the same time, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, or MJO, influences tropical convection and moisture patterns. When the MJO is in certain phases, it enhances the subtropical jet. The subtropical jet is what brings Gulf moisture north. The forecast shows the MJO moving into a phase that supports subtropical jet activity around mid-January. This means Gulf moisture becomes available right when cold air is pushing south. The combination of strongly negative EPO and favorable MJO phase creates the setup for widespread precipitation across the south-central United States. This is the meteorological reason why mid to late January shows promise for drought relief. Now, let me break down what different areas could see. Texas Panhandle, Amarillo, Lubbock. You're likely cold enough for snow. If the setup verifies, you could see significant snow, 6 to 12 inches possible. This would be huge for drought relief. Snow melts slowly and soaks into the ground rather than running off quickly like rain. But even if you get rain instead of snow, rain is what you desperately need. Any moisture helps at this point. DFW Metroplex. You're on the line between snow, ice, and rain. Exact temperature profile determines what you get. If cold air is strong enough, you see snow. If it's marginal, you see ice. If it's too warm, you see rain. From a drought perspective, you don't care what form it comes in. You just need moisture. Rain, snow, ice, sleet, whatever. Moisture is moisture. Houston, Austin, San Antonio. You're warm enough that you'll likely see rain rather than frozen precipitation, but rain is exactly what you need. The drought maps show you in abnormally dry to moderate drought conditions. Several inches of rain would make a massive difference. West Texas. You commented that you're desperate for moisture. Land is dry. Ponds are low. Mid to late January is your hope. The pattern supports it. Whether you get rain or snow depends on exact temperatures, but moisture is likely. Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Wichita. Similar to DFW, you're on the line between frozen and liquid, but you need moisture regardless of form. The drought situation in Oklahoma is serious. Cattle producers are hurting. Wheat farmers are concerned. Any significant precipitation event would provide substantial relief. Arkansas, particularly northern Arkansas. You need rain. The pattern supports it. You're positioned to see multiple rounds of precipitation during the mid to late January timeframe as storm systems track through. Western Tennessee, Memphis area. Similar to Arkansas. Multiple opportunities for precipitation. Soil moisture needs replenishment. Reservoirs need inflows. The pattern could provide both. Now, I want to talk about what this moisture means beyond just numbers on a map. For farmers and ranchers, this could mean the difference between making it and not making it. Drought creates financial strain that compounds over time. lost crops, reduced yields, livestock that have to be sold because there's no feed or water, land that gets degraded from overgrazing because there's not enough pasture. One good soaking doesn't erase months of drought, but it provides breathing room. It gives crops a chance. It refills ponds and tanks. It reduces fire danger. It lets stressed vegetation recover. For water supplies, this matters enormously. Reservoirs that supply cities have been drawing down. Aquifers that supply wells have been depleting. A wet January and February can significantly improve water supply situations heading into spring and summer. For fire danger, moisture is critical. As long as vegetation is dry, fire risk remains extreme. One lightning strike, one accident, and you have a fast-moving wildfire. Moisture reduces that risk. Green vegetation doesn't burn readily. Wet ground doesn't carry fire. For mental health, drought wears on you. Watching your land suffer, watching your livelihood threatened, feeling helpless because you can't make it rain. The stress accumulates. Hope for moisture provides psychological relief even before the rain falls. Isaiah 35:6-7. Water will gush forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow. God promises restoration. Dry places become wet, barren places become fruitful. That's not just spiritual metaphor. That's also literal promise about creation. You've been in drought, you've been watching and waiting, you've been praying for rain. The atmospheric pattern developing for mid-January could be the answer to those prayers. Now, I promised at the 19-minute mark I'd break down precipitation amounts. We're past that, so let me deliver. This is pattern potential, not specific storm forecasts. Models 3 weeks out are not reliable for specific amounts. But based on the pattern, here's what's possible. If this setup verifies, and it's still uncertain because we're weeks out, but if it verifies, we're looking at widespread precipitation events across the south-central United States during the January 15th through 25th timeframe. Not just one event, multiple events. Storm systems tracking through every few days, each one bringing moisture, potential rainfall amounts for areas that see rain instead of snow, 1 to 3 inches per event. Multiple events could mean 3 to 6 inches total over a 10-day period. For drought-stricken areas, that's huge. That's drought-busting precipitation. Areas cold enough for snow could see 6 to 12 inches from major events. Snow water equivalent of that much snow is significant moisture. The key is, it's not just one system. It's a pattern that supports repeated moisture. That's what ends droughts. Not one storm, but a pattern shift that brings moisture regularly over weeks. Now, let me talk about preparation for this potential moisture, because there are things you should do now. If you're a farmer or rancher, make sure your equipment is ready for wet conditions. If you've been dealing with drought for months, you might not have thought about mud and flooding, but rapid moisture after extended drought can create flash flooding. Dry soil becomes hydrophobic, meaning it repels water at first. Heavy rain runs off rather than soaking in. Low water crossings and creek crossings that have been dry for months could become impassable quickly during heavy rain. Have alternate routes planned. For urban areas, storm drains that haven't flowed in months might be clogged. When heavy rain hits, flooding can occur in areas that don't normally flood because drainage systems aren't functioning properly. Check your property for drainage issues. Make sure downspouts direct water away from foundations. Make sure grading slopes away from your home. After drought, it's easy to forget about water management. But when moisture arrives, you need to be ready. For those dealing with dead or stressed vegetation from drought, fire danger remains high until vegetation greens up. Even after rain, dead grass and dead wood can still burn. Don't let your guard down immediately. It takes time for vegetation to recover. Also, be grateful when the moisture comes. After months of praying for rain, when it finally arrives, thank God. Don't complain that it's too much or that you can't work in the mud. You asked for moisture. Receive it gratefully. Now, let me address the uncertainty honestly. I'm showing you pattern potential 3 weeks out. This is not a guaranteed forecast. Models will change, timing will shift, specific details will evolve. Some areas might see more moisture than currently indicated, some areas might see less. What's less likely to change is the overall pattern. A shift toward more active weather for the south-central United States during mid to late January. Whether that produces 3 inches of rain or 6 inches, whether it comes January 15th or January 20th, those details will become clear as we get closer. What I'm asking you to do is prepare with hope, not blind hope that ignores reality. Informed hope based on atmospheric signals that suggest relief is possible. If the moisture doesn't come, you're no worse off than you are now. But if it does come and you're not prepared, you miss opportunities to maximize benefit and minimize problems. Before I close, let me give you key points. Current situation: moderate to severe drought across Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, parts of Arkansas, and Tennessee. Soil moisture depleted, ponds low, fire danger elevated. Economic and agricultural stress significant. Pattern shift timeframe, mid to late January, approximately January 15th through 25th. Not certain, but pattern signals are present. Atmospheric setup. Deeply negative EPO brings jet stream far south. Favorable MJO phase enhances subtropical moisture. Combination creates precipitation potential. Expected precipitation. Multiple events possible. Rainfall totals potentially 1 to 3 inches per event. Snow totals 6 to 12 inches for areas cold enough. Cumulative moisture could be significant. Preparation. Check equipment for wet conditions. Plan for drainage issues. Clear storm drains. Maintain fire awareness until vegetation recovers. Most important, hope with wisdom. Monitor forecasts. Prepare, pray. Be ready to receive what you've been asking for. If you found this drought relief forecast helpful, I'd appreciate it if you could like this video. Subscribe if you haven't. This pattern develops over the next 2 weeks. Updates will be critical. Share with people in drought areas who need hope. Farmers, ranchers, anyone watching their land suffer. Comment your city and state and your current drought situation. Psalm 65:9 through 13. You care for the land and water it. You enrich it abundantly. The streams of God are filled with water to provide the people with grain. You drench its furrows and level its ridges. You soften it with showers and bless its crops. You crown the year with your bounty and your carts overflow with abundance. God provides. Sometimes the wait is long. Sometimes the drought seems endless. But provision comes. Rain falls, land recovers, hope is justified. Stay faithful. Stay prepared, and may the moisture you've been praying for arrive in abundance. I'll see you in tomorrow's update as we continue tracking this developing pattern.